are a bit special because they know English, but they also know other languages and they know of other cultures as well. And because of this, you might be interested to know that 400 million people speak English as a first language. Those are native speakers. But 1.4 billion people speak English as a second language. So it's those 1.4 billion people that are really going to be the collaborators in the businesses today, because a lot of businesses are now global businesses. And so more than likely, our students that we're teaching today, even the grown-ups, even in our business English classes, we might recognize already how it's very global and how they need to have those skills to be able to communicate and collaborate with their peers worldwide. So our kids are growing up in a very, very different world. And so one of the things is the way that we connect. There are so many information and communication technologies out there that really enable us to connect in really great ways in real time, with time differences and things like that. So what happened in 1993? Can anyone guess in the chat box what happened in 1993 to really change the way we have information and communication technologies and how things changed so we could be more collaborative and communicative internationally? Oh, very good, Bob. Ola too. Okay, very good. Yes, it's the internet. And with the internet, you might have seen how before the internet, if you remember how you used to collaborate with each other as teachers. So in 1992, I began teaching, and this is before the internet. And I remember that was one of my first classes. It was like 100 students, and they had so many different problems. They had ADHD, they had problems with dyslexia, reading, literacy, so many different problems that I had to deal with, so many learning needs. And I remember thinking, I need help. And the best way that I could get help at the time was I had to go to the library and I had to do the research, and then I would order a book that would come in 6 weeks later. Yes, this is in the U.S., 100 students in one class. This is an inner city school, inner city church school, so that's why the large number of students. And I don't know if you remember that, but collaboration was so difficult. It was really hard to get the information you needed. But in 1993, the World Wide Web came into place. And then as it's become more advanced and more people have added information on it, then you've seen that there are different ways that we can connect and collaborate. And we can bring these social networks, or what we also call personal learning environments, and we might recognize a few here. You can put it in the chat box if you recognize a few. Like, for example, you might recognize what this one is. Definitely what this one would be, or this one, or this one. It even says YouTube, and maybe even this one. And these are the places where we get together. Yes, Blogger, we have Skype, we have Instant Messenger, we have Yahoo, we have Google. There's so many, Diego, Twitter, Facebook, Ming, so many different sites, and there's way more sites than this. But the great thing is that we're able to collaborate and connect and communicate, and maybe you're already doing this as teachers, but I think it's very important that we teach our kids how to do this. So I try to remember the 4 C's when we're communicating online, because the difference is that we're so used to face-to-face communication, and internet or online communication is very different. And the reason why it's so different is because a majority of communication, and they say anywhere from 60 to 96% I've seen, is face-to-face communication. But in online communication, you really don't have that. So this is kind of what I remember, the 4 C's: connect, communicate, collaborate, and create. And these are the things that your students should be doing online as well. So when our students learn to effectively communicate online, then they can take care of a lot of things. They can work globally, and if they can get along with each other, if they can get past stereotypes, if they can actually talk in a way that doesn't offend each other, then they can solve world problems that we never were able to before, like lack of resources, disease, lack of technology, pollution, and poverty. This is a picture of Google Hangout. And I think Google Hangout, I'm going to actually do a webinar specifically on Google Hangout because I think Google Plus is definitely a great way of communicating, collaborating online effectively. So if you're not on there, I do encourage it, especially for language learners. And there are some features that I'll show you about it that are really great for language learners. But when we go online, I think it's really important to remember that one determined person can make a significant difference, but a small group of determined people can really change the course of history. And I really learned this when I was in Thailand recently. I was training some teachers, and they used ICT with problem-based learning. And all their language learners, all their students, the projects that they did with technology and ICT change their environment. It really helped save them. So you have people in Malaysia with no resources, in India, in Bangladesh, and all these Southeast Asian countries who were changing the world. And they were students and they were language learners. And they were doing it through collaborative teams and technologies. So what tools will help our kids and us collaborate and problem solve with peers worldwide? Well, here are some of the most effective free tools that I've seen. Widgio is my favorite. I've been able to actually participate in several global projects, about 20 or 30 in the last 2 or 3 years that have been really successful. EdChat, there's been the 30 Goals Challenge, there's been the We Connect project, there's so many, and Widgio has been the Reform Symposium Conference. All of these are very, the way we collaborate in teams of 14, 15 teachers worldwide in different time zones is because we have things like Widgio, Google Docs, Dropbox, Wikis, Skype, Facebook groups, and Google+. And so these are other tools that are also very helpful. Vocal, Edmodo, Enter the Group, Ning. Nings aren't free anymore. There's only like a basic Ning, and you have to make sure you sign up for the educator account to do it. But these are some other places you may find that are effective places as well. Superteachershow.net. It's a bunch of videos that you can have like a video conversation. Moodle, ELGG, WizIQ, Google Groups, Juntos, Twidla, Grouply, Yahoo Groups, Poster Spaces, TitanPad, and Zoho. And so I'm going to show you what these look like. First one is Widgio. The reason I love Widgio is it's free. It's made by university students. And there's so many different types of ways you can help a group effectively communicate together. And so it's really great for your students because students actually coordinated this when they had to do projects together. And so one of the things you can do is it looks a little like Twitter. You have your status updates, and then people can reply to them. You can add links. You can add very short messages, and it'll go straight to the email. So even if you're not a part of the Widgio format, if you don't want to log into Widgio, you can always receive it through text message, or you can receive the notices through email. And you can do your settings, so it's once a day, once a week when you get the messages. The other things it has is really simple to create a group. You can make the group color. You can choose your email selections. You can create events. You can say like what time you want to do a call. You can add files. You can add Word documents. The really cool thing about it is you can actually edit your documents while on the Widgio platform. So you don't have to go to another, you don't have to download it, and you don't have to update your Word document. You can do it right there on the Widgio platform. So that's really awesome. You can schedule a meeting. You can send messages. You can make a to-do list for people. So if you have a team leader and the team leader says, this is what needs to get done, and it even gives you a date. And then you also have polls, so you can vote on things like on different types of ideas and projects as well. You can create a new file. You can add all the people that you want. You can create more than one group. So you have the files, you have the meeting, you can even do a conference call, you can have a virtual meeting with your own free whiteboard. So there's so many different things you can do. And it's also an app as well. So you can access this for free on your mobile device. Facebook groups. I think Facebook groups are really great. One of the greatest things about Facebook groups is you don't have to sign up for an account. A lot of your students are already going to be on Facebook. They have very private features. You can invite students to be part of that. And I think Facebook groups are really effective for students. You can create documents in there. You can share Word documents. You can share spreadsheet. You can share PowerPoint presentations. You can view photos. You can even have a private chat with everybody that's within the group. So your students who already have an account on Facebook, or if you already do, then this is a very effective way to actually have different types of communication and stuff. I think it works better for smaller groups. And the reason why I say that is because then you can be more interactive and you can see the updates and you can see it begin to blossom. But they have to be really, since it's online, you have to make sure that you constantly have things to where they're very active within the group. Twidlet. Twidlet is a type of whiteboard machine, a whiteboard that's online. You don't have to register. That's why I love it. There are other ones, like there's Tide and all these other great whiteboard things. But the great thing about Twidlet.com is that you don't have to register. And for me, I try to get it to where my students will do the least amount of registering for new sites as possible, because then they're going to have all these accounts and it's going to be really difficult for them to manage. So Twidlet is really good for that. It does different colors. You can sign as a guest. You don't even have to put your real name. And then you can add images, documents, Etherpad, a web page. You can mark on it. You can draw on it. You can add shapes and text. And then you can record it so the teacher can see the work that was done. Juntos. Juntos is another collaborative type of website, and it was actually developed by a co-creator, a good friend of mine. But the way this one works is this is for the video and the face-to-face. So you can have a chat with many different people from around the world, but you can also see them in video. You can use a hashtag, and with the hashtag you can follow the conversation that way. They do it through Twitter, so you can have the hashtag through Twitter. But you can also have a private chat as well. The great thing about if you do it on Twitter and you have a hashtag is that you're able to save the conversation. This is what it looks like. You can see this was one of the teams that I worked with, the Co-op Catalyst blog group. And this is what we did. We had our different videos. And at the bottom, you could see who was talking because it highlights it on the bottom. And all of this is absolutely for free, and you don't have to register. So that's Juntos. And that's actually the website for that, let me put it on, is junto.cc. So I will add that, and then you can check it out. And they're doing updates all the time, so that way they can make it a much better platform. There's a lot of apps online that you can collaborate with. There's Widgio, Dropbox. Dropbox is on Android, BlackBerry, I believe, and it's iFriendly, so it's great. Facebook, the same thing. You have a Facebook group, and you can access it in pretty much any type of smartphone. I think you can even actually do it as well on a regular mobile phone if you decide to send text messages. Posture is the same, many different types of platforms, and Postures is a fantastic way to collaborate online as well. I didn't show the Postures because I've shown it in previous ones, but it's really good. Google Plus, several different platforms as well. It's a great app. Skype, Edmodo, all of these are in different platforms. All of these are in various platforms. The only ones that are not is Widgio and PowerDocs. PowerDocs gives you a way to access and edit your Google Docs, so that's why I showed it. This is what the Widgio app looks like. This is what the PowerDocs app looks like. You can see right here, it puts a different color when I edit the document. It gives the date, the time, and all of these things as well. You can access other Google documents as well. And Google, for me, I love Google. I love doing things on Google, and I think it's a really great way. Once you have a Google account, you have all of these apps that are available for really powerful collaboration. So I try to get my students on Google and to get a Google account. Wikis are really fantastic too, and I do that for a lot of my students as well. So now that I've showed you many different types of sites where you can go and you can collaborate, and they're free and they've been in existence for a long time, so you don't have to worry that they'll go away. There are some things to consider when you want to have a very effective global team, and these are things to consider with your students as well. I think it's not only important to get our students to collaborate, but it's important that we teach them the way to effectively and successfully collaborate online together. So some of the things you might want to consider are, what are your communication options? In your schools, you may have a limited amount of technology, or for example, you may have, when you're choosing a platform, these are some of the things you have to think about. Your bandwidth. Do you have any bandwidth? Are the students going to have internet access at home or at the library and be able to access this offline as well? So these are the things that you have to assess in your own situation. What archiving options does it have? In other words, how can you record the communication? So Instant Messenger, for example, I think is great. A lot of language learners love it. A lot of language learners love to do things with Windows Messenger, and a lot of my language learners, that's what we started off with. But the bad thing about Instant Messenger is you can't record it. I mean, you have to copy and paste the conversation. You've got to go through a lot of work to archive it. So if that's what you're going to use to collaborate, if that's what your students are going to use to chat with each other, then you have to make sure that you show them, okay, you need to be able to record it. And the reason you want to record it is because a lot of times with online communication, the great thing about it is the ability to go back and to see what was said in case any problems arise, like due dates or things like that. Sometimes you want your language learners to be so caught up in the conversation that they don't have to worry about their grammar and things like that during the conversation. You don't want to interrupt the flow. But later you can have the recording, and then you can go through the conversation and you can make the grammar corrections or maybe suggest better ways of communicating. What are your storage options? That's why I chose Dropbox to mention, because a lot of times in a lot of these websites, you're not going to have recording options, and you probably won't have storage options. Now, on Widgio, you do. So that's why I really love Widgio. But you can always use Dropbox, and Dropbox gives you 2 gigabytes for free, I believe. And then your students can upload their communication that way to the Dropbox. And they can access it offline, and they can access it on their computer as well. What are your time management options? Well, you need to choose the platform that's the most effective time-wise. The reason why I have my students get Google accounts and Google sites versus maybe necessarily a wiki all the time is because it takes less time when they have all of the Google account options. Widgio, if they're always on Widgio, then if they're always accessing it through their email, which a lot of our students are still very glued to their email and they use it, then that's going to be a time saver for them because they access their email every day, and then they're going to be able to see what happens there. They're going to be able to communicate effectively. So whatever you think is the best time management tool, then that's the one you want to use. Maybe it's Edmodo, maybe it's Twitter, maybe it's Facebook groups. You get to decide. And part of that time management is see how many of your students, especially adult students, will have access to whatever free app or will use it on their mobile device, because that will save them a lot of time. If you can get your students to check messages while they're riding on the metro or while they're standing in line, then they save time and they appreciate it. I used to do that with my German students, and my adult German students did enjoy because they did have access to the internet on their smartphone, and they were able to download some of the apps and be able to use them that way and save time. And then you want to see how user-friendly it is for everyone. If a lot of our younger students can handle a lot more technology than maybe our older students, so that's something to consider. If you have some students who it's very difficult for them to get past email. I knew one person in my Widgio group. He couldn't he couldn't participate on the platform. He just couldn't figure out how to go on the platform and participate on Widgio. But he could do the email and he could respond to the email, so everybody in the group still got his messages. And now an important question, what does it take for an online team to work? Well, here's potential problems that I've run into in my online teams. I've had a lot of bad online team experiences before I learned how to have really great ones. And so these were some of the things that you can teach your students about. the unwillingness to be flexible. We need to have case studies or scenarios, or even role-playing is a great way to have your students think about how they're going to communicate and how they're going to collaborate online. So one of the things is for them to be very flexible. If you're not going to be flexible, you're collaborating with people from that are different from you. There's going to be girls, there's going to be boys in the classroom. There's a lot of hormones, there's a lot of emotions. If you have a global collaboration project, that's even more complications. You're going to have people from different cultures who communicate differently. So you have to be very, very flexible. Cultural insensitivity. I've dealt with classes where it's just one culture, but I've dealt with more classes where it's a mix of cultures. And that's one of the things when you are online, you have to be more sensitive to different cultures. It's very important that the different cultures learn how each other communicate and is very respectful and responsible for that, because that's how we learn about other cultures, but that's also avoids a lot of problems. So if ahead of time, if you can do a lesson on the different cultures that are going to be in the team, and if they can find out about each other and the way they communicate, then that would be really wonderful. Cultural misunderstanding. Our students have to realize that sometimes the ways that we communicate online, and it's due to our culture, that we're going to have a lot of misunderstandings. So we need to teach them they can't jump to conclusions like it's always the worst scenario. I think a lot of us, when we get online, we sometimes always think the bad of the bad. Sometimes when someone writes in caps, this is a common mistake. Somebody will do something in caps and they don't realize that they're typing in caps. Or maybe they're like my father and they can't see the computer, or they can't see the text online, so they type in all caps. And sometimes caps looks like it's screaming. But really what it is that my father just can't read well what he types online, so he uses all caps. So we have to have a little bit of tolerance there. Lack of communication of deadlines, project details, roles, duties. These are all very important. Whenever you have a team leader in the group, then these are things they have to think about, is they have to communicate deadlines and they have to ensure that people follow them. Project details. When you're online, it's very important that they have documentation that says clearly what their role is, what the tasks are, give lots of checklists. It's really important to do that. Respect time zone differences, and then mutual misunderstanding of cultural customs and negotiation and communication. Sometimes we negotiate differently, and this is more of a business type of, when you're teaching business English students, when you're teaching them to communicate online and adults, then this is something that they'll have to learn, is how to negotiate respectfully and bargain with each other. And you'll have to teach them about like the different types of power and ways of bargaining and coming to a compromise. And your students will really appreciate that. And you have to teach them the difference between nonverbal and verbal communication, because that's really important. So more potential problems. You have unwillingness to compromise. You have to be willing to compromise. Mishandling of conflict. We have to teach conflict resolution. Even for our young learners, it's very great if they learn how to do all of this. And you can find resources for all of this. You can find really interesting ways that global teams actually on online platforms handle conflict. There's a lot of information if you Google it. In a lot of journals they talk about it. Inexperience in communicating with English language learners. Okay, so this is basically if you're doing a class collaborative project, if you're doing a class collaboration project with native speakers, and then you have your English language learners, it's important that the native speakers understand that English is as a lingua franca. It comes with different accents, and the native speakers, sometimes they're a little insensitive towards English language learners, and that's something that we should teach them, is how we should warn them, there's going to be different accents. It's really good that if you open yourself to understanding different accents. Every team needs a good leader. The first time that you have online collaborative sites and you use them with your students, pick those that you know are natural leaders. have them become the leader right away, and then you can switch roles later, but this way it tends to be more successful. Establish a vision and a mission. Each group has to have a mission. They have to have a vision, something that they want to accomplish together, and they have to make everybody a part of that mission and vision. Designate roles and tasks. Everybody plays a role. There's a note keeper, there's a record keeper, there's someone who puts the templates together. And if your shy student is really good at drawing and creative things and stuff like that, then play to their strength. Make sure that the first group project that you really play to their strength and that you allow them to do things that they're really good at. Then later you can have them step out of their comfort zones and try other things as well. But for the very first group projects online, make sure that it plays to their different strengths. Keep people updated constantly. And that's one of the tasks of your students. So these are just things that you're maintaining, but your students are doing all of these. This is what your students have to be able to do. They have to be, and the team leader should be very flexible, patient, and open to ideas. Meet and greet. Okay, so this is Google Hangout, and Google Hangout's really great because you can do collaborative videos. Everybody can join, but you can also look at a YouTube video together and you can chat about it. There's a chat box. There's a video that you can put from YouTube if it's on YouTube, and you can talk about it together in small groups. So it's really, really fantastic. We act very silly when we get online. This is Cecilia from Brazil, and Mike in Germany, and me in the US, and little baby Roscoe. It's important that every team, if you teach online classes, this is really important, that they have a nonverbal, that they meet face-to-face and get personal. They have to know things about each other, do things like, what are your favorite songs? What do people eat in your culture? Businesses have found that when they had online teams and they worked from different countries and they had them do videos of each other and talk about their families, that they ended up having better success rates. And the reason is because sometimes when we get online and we don't see the person, we forget that there's a person we're communicating with. And so when you meet and greet and you get to know about them and you see them on video, then they become a real person and you're less likely to offend them. So, and your students as well. Your students will begin to learn and discover things, the routines and the habits and what they like and dislike from different cultures. And then if they meet them on video, then they'll really start a relationship and a friendship, and they'll be more flexible and able to work with them. So schedule regular fun sessions. Get a little personal. It's okay. Be aware of time zones. You can use timeanddate.com. They have what's called the World Clock Meeting Planner. It gives you 5 different locations or more, and then you can see what are the best times to schedule a meeting. So timeanddate.com is a really, really helpful site. There's also Doodle, but I really prefer this one as well. And then you also have to be aware of when time changes, and that's something that I'm still working on. For the last 2 weeks, I've had a problem with the Brazilian time zone. And then be aware of international communication differences as well. So we're about to wrap up, and I want to leave you with this quote from one of the participants of a very successful online collaboration that I did. And the great thing about it is that a lot of the people that I started collaboration global projects with, we never met in person to begin with. And the reason why a lot of these projects have been so successful is because of the things that I showed you today. And later on, we did get to meet each other, and it was really exciting. And we were so happy with each other because we were able to learn so much, and you felt like you really knew someone when you do like a global collaboration project. But Ruth Cohenson in EdChat, which was the first kind of huge successful project I had, said the power we have through networking is humbling, frightening, and exciting. Use it well. And Ruth Cohenson is just a teacher like all of us. So I really loved her quote when she said that inside the EdChat, and her Twitter handle is truth. So these are some of the individuals that I got to meet recently. from EdChat, which is Stephen Anderson and Mary Beth Hertz. And you can find all of these resources if you go to bit.ly ELT links, and I'll put that in the chat box. And I know it's a lot of information, so to make it a little bit easier for you, I also have the slides. So let me go ahead and give you the address where you can download all of these slides. And if you need help with anything, just let me know, and I will give you some resources on how to teach these different types of skills. But the great thing is, when you're doing a global collaboration project, it's really wonderful for language learners because they're speaking in English and they're doing things in English, and it's really meaningful and important to them. So you can always go back and you correct the English, but it's a great way to get your students to really begin using English in specific contexts and to really see what English emerges from them. And if you have any ideas, you're more than welcome to share them right now by raising your hand.